Good morning. Reading from Sea to Shining Sea, a treasure of American folklore and folk songs. This is done by Scholastic Magazine. It has about $25 uh, in the book. That's what the cost of it. It has hundreds of stories, and I'd like to share a story with you today. A tall tale, a legend, or biography. Which one is the story of Davy Crockett? He is so mixed up with myth and magic, tall tale, legend, and the truth. It's hard to sort out his life. But listen to this one. Strong but quirky, retold by Erwin Shapiro. The morning Davy Crockett was born, Davy's pa came busting out of his cabin in Tennessee alongside the Nolichucky River. He fired 3 shots in the air, gave a whoop. I got me a son. His name is Davy Crockett. He'll be greatest hunter in all creation. The sun rose up like a ball of fire. The wind howled up rip-roariously. Thunder boomed. All the critters and varmints of the forest let out a moan. Then Davy's pa went back in the cabin. Little Davy was stretched out in a cradle made out of a snapping turtle shell. There was a pair of elk horns over the top, and over the elk horns was the skin of a wildcat. And the cradle was running by water power, and it was rocking away, rockety-wonk, runkety-wonk. Now all the Crocketts were big. Davy was even big for a Crockett. He weighed 200 pounds, 14 ounces, like a wildcat. And his ma and Aunt Katina stood over Davy trying to get him to sleep. Sing something to quiet that boy, Aunt Katina said to Uncle Rorius, who was standing in the corner combing his hair with a rake. Uncle Rorius opened his mouth and sang a bit of Over the River to Charlie. That is, it was meant for singing. It sounded more like a howling around a country barn at midnight. Said Uncle Rorius. He reached for a jug and took him a sip of kerosene oil to loosen up his pipes. Davy was sitting up in his cradle. He was keeping his peepers on his uncle, watching him pull at that jug. I'll have a sip of that same sauce, said Davy. That kerosene jug slipped right out of Uncle Rorius's hand. Davy's ma and his Aunt Katina let out a shriek. Why, the little shaver can talk, said Davy's pa. Well, I don't jabber good enough to make a speech in Congress, but I reckon I got the hang of it. It's nothing to Davy Crockett. That's mighty big talk, son. It ought to be. It's coming from a mighty big man, said little Davy. With that, he leaped out of his cradle, kicked his heels together, and crowed like a rooster, flapped his arms, and bellowed, I'm Davy Crockett, fresh from the backwoods. I'm half horse, half alligator, with a little touch of snapping turtle. I can wade the Mississippi, ride a streak of lightning, hug a bear too close for comfort, and whip my weight in wildcats. I can out-eat, out-sleep, out-jump, out-shoot, out-run, out-jump, and out-squat any man in here in the United States. And I will. That'll be enough of your sass, said Aunt Katina. Now get back in your cradle and behave. Yes, ma'am, said Davy. He was always polite to the ladies. No such thing. Sitting in the cradle won't grow him. No, we got to plant him in the earth and water him with wild buffalo milk with boiled corn cobs and tobacco leaves mixed in. Can't do any harm, said Davy's ma. Might do some good, said Davy's pa. And so they took him out to the Thunder Shower Hill and planted him. And they watered him with wild buffalo's milk and boiled corn cobs, tobacco leaves mixed in. And he grew, and he grew, and he grew, until his head was above the clouds. He's too big. He's too big for a hunter, said Davy's pa. It won't be fair and square. What are we going to do, said Uncle Rorius. Only one thing to do. We got to uproot him and let him grow down to man size. And so they uprooted him. And he kicked his heels together and flapped his arms and bellowed, look out, all you critters and varmints of the forest. Here comes Davy Crockett, half alligator, half horse, and a little touch of snapping turtle. Now that's what's called an American tall tale. Tall tales were unique to the United States, and they came out of our frontier west. Davy Crockett was considered to be legend, tall tale, and biography. A man who went from the Congress of the United States and ended up dying at the Alamo. There are a lot of legends tied around Davy Crockett's life, and one of them has to do with his death. It appears now that based on historical documents from a colonel in Santa Anna's army, we may have another story of Davy Crockett's death. It certainly is making a lot of people in Texas angry because it's doing away with what they considered was a historical fact about Davy Crockett and putting that in its place a legend. Davy Crockett according to the colonel in Santa Anna's army, did not die fighting at the Alamo, defending it with his last breath. According to a colonel in the army, Davy Crockett was captured as the Alamo fell. He was then dragged to Santa Anna, and Santa Anna ordered that he be summarily executed, knowing that this was Crockett, that he was a congressman. He did not keep him as a prisoner of war, but had him executed. There's a lot of anger out there right now about whether this is legend, historical fact, or if we're back to a tall tale. Your job now is to consider these facts about Crockett's life and tell me, what position do you stand? Do you stand with the Disney film position that Crockett died defending the Alamo, standing there on the wall, or that he was captured and as a prisoner of war was taken out behind the Alamo and executed? Good luck.